Thank you very much for everyone who's joined us live this morning. The Wolters Kluwer are very pleased to partner with Whisper Claims on this webinar. So I'm going to pass over to Suze now, who'll just give a quick intro to their team.
Thanks so much, Steph. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. Today's event is called Winning Advisory Market Share with Mike Dean, MD and co-founder of Whisper Claims, and leading consultant to accountants Richard Bruin from Progress BB. I'm Suze, commercial manager here at Whisper Claims. Our session today follows the recent collaboration and publication of our latest ebook, which has been co-authored by Mike and Richard, called Making the Shift from Compliance to Advisory. Just a quick heads up for housekeeping before we get started. We do have plenty of time set aside at the end of the session for a Q&A. So please do feel free to get your questions ready and start firing them across as soon as you like into the Q&A box, please. I will be using the chat box to share links and info as we go through the session. And if anybody does want to chat to us, then please do feel free to use that box. And remember, you can toggle your settings if you want to remain anonymous. Okay, so let's get going. As accountants, building a more profitable and sustainable business for the future is not what you are just what you're trying to help your clients do. It's what you need to be doing too. We speak to the accountancy community daily, and a familiar scenario we hear is that firms may already be providing advisory services and consultancy support alongside their compliance services, but for no additional charge. This may resonate with some of you on the call today. Today, Mike and Richard are going to delve into how accountants should be starting to think about shifting how their clients view them by finding new ways to engage with them and demonstrating the value that they offer. They'll discuss the first steps you should be thinking about when making this shift, and also how leveraging technology is crucial in delivering these services in a tangible, transparent, structured and effective way. Just for those of you that don't know much about us in terms of us here at Whisper Claims, we are a technology company focused on helping accountants to grow their businesses. Our R&D tax software allows our users to build new revenues, either by launching their own in-house R&D service or by introducing a framework that increases throughput and capacity to ensure that there's no need to outsource. Firmly sitting alongside our transformational software is our comprehensive support suites. Our current subscribers will be familiar with all the ways that they can get in touch with us if anybody's on the call today, and that is to provide help and advice on any scheme or eligibility related questions through various channels, which includes phone, email, live chat, and our community WhatsApp and Facebook groups as well. I know everybody will be dying to dive in, so I'll hand over now to Mike and Richard for a quick intro.
Great. Thank you, Suze. So I'm Mike, MD here at Whisper Claims. Suze has done such a good job there of introducing our business. I won't bore you with any more about that, but hand over to Richard. If Richard, you can tell us a bit more about Progress BB.
Thank you, Mike. Suze, hello everybody. Yes, as Suze says, I'm Richard Bruin. I'm Managing Director of Progress BB. And we provide mentoring and coaching support and services for owner-managed accountants. I'm an accountant myself, have been for 41 years now, came to the profession in 1981, reached partner level in national and regional firms, and in 1993 set up the first of our own firms, which we've done 3 times since and successfully sold those on. So our role really is to help other accountants to have, in a nutshell, more fun out of their firms, to get greater rewards and to have greater happiness from what they do. And of course, that's very much central and focused on the client relationships. And you can't have conversations without advisory, without having conversations about client relationships.
Brilliant, thanks, Richard. Getting more fun out of business sounds like a fantastic objective, by the way. So excellent. Right, so straight into the session. What we're going to talk about today. So we'll kick off trying to define what advisory services are. It sounds like maybe an obvious question, but we hear so many different definitions. So we'll get into that to start with. Why does this whole debate about advisory matter so much now? What's going on in the world that's kind of pushing us in that direction? How do I deliver advisory services to existing clients? A lot of people ask us, how do I win new business? But actually, fundamentally, what we should be looking at in the first instance is how do I service existing clients and add more value there? So we'll have a look at that, and then move on to how do I win advisory from new clients? And of course, what's the first step? How do I actually start on that journey? Critical component. And then finally, how can tech help that transition. And of course, we see that through the delivery of our own tech solutions. So we'll try and bring some of that to life when we get to that point as well. So that first question, what are advisory services? So a few months ago, I put up a post on LinkedIn with a poll, and I'm going to talk about the results of the poll a little bit later on in the session. But the poll was essentially about asking SMEs, how do they see their accountant, and do they see their accountant as a business advisor? Now, in a past life, I spent a bit of time running consultancy businesses. So I happen to be connected to a lot of consultants. So whenever I push up questions about accountants becoming advisors, I get this kind of negative pushback from the consultancy world. And that's what some of these responses are. So these are in response to that poll. Perhaps if I pick on this bottom right-hand quote here, I have this conversation often, find it personally astounding that accountants would see themselves or be seen by their clients as responsible to give business advice or guidance. So what are we talking about here, Richard? Are we talking about accountants reinventing themselves as business consultants, or are we talking about something else?
I certainly don't think there is any reinvention here. I think part of the challenge that we face at the moment is understanding what we mean by advisory. And as you say, there are so many very different definitions of it that actually it's in danger of becoming a bit of a holy grail, and we're building up into something that maybe it isn't. In my mind, accountants have always done advisory, in as much as we have always given advice. We've always helped clients with their businesses. What we haven't done in the past is do it in such a structured way that it was both sustainable and a clearly deliverable service. So it has sort of morphed into something that clients get from their accountants without particularly realizing it. And I think that's the problem. So we certainly need to better define what advisory is and how we deliver it. But in terms of having the skills and the expertise and the experience to do it, I would argue it's something that certainly most accountants, have always done.
Yeah, and we'll see later on that it's also something that the clients of accountants expect their accountant to deliver as well, which is a really important point, I think. So why does advisory matter so much now? This slide is already quite old. Actually, it's a year old, so I should really update this and no doubt be twice the size. So we see so much technology kind of pervading the world of finance and accounting, and a lot of that tech is about taking cost and complexity out of the kind of core compliance services, which is great on the one hand, but on the other hand, that also means that the barriers to entry into that compliance market are lower. It means there's increasing competition. It means there's downward pressure on pricing. So there's a whole load of kind of negative connotations of that too. And I mean, is that something that you see, Richard, when you're talking to your clients?
Yes, I mean, as is always the case when it comes to change, I think there is both opportunity and threat. And as accountants, I think we've spent the last 500 years essentially delivering compliance work, and by that I mean taking the client's incomplete records and turning them into compliant accounts. And that's worked very, very well as a business model. It's sustained as a profession. But the problem with that has always been that it's a slow and cumbersome process. And so by the time you got to the point where you got useful information, time had gone by, the client had used all their budget up, and there wasn't the opportunity really to develop client relationships beyond that. Well, of course, now with the digital revolution, we can do the compliance side far, far quicker. We can access information far, far quicker. We can analyze that information quicker. So we've created an opportunity for the accountant. Now, of course, that creates an opportunity for our competition as well. And so if we don't do anything about that, there's the threat. If we seize that opportunity, then that's how we can benefit and we can build better and more rewarding relationships with clients. But we have to do one or the other. I think we can't just sort of stick our head in the sands. I certainly don't buy into the argument that compliance is dead. There's more compliance than ever. And actually, on the basis that advisory is built upon trust, then trust obviously builds upon the compliance work that we do with our clients. So I see it as very much part of the same journey that you take the client along what we now have time and resources to do is to build that journey where maybe in the past we didn't have that opportunity.
And do you think with the sort of price pressure that we see, are there kind of average fees for compliance-led firms actually going down? Do you see that manifesting itself in reality?
And I think it can do. Again, we see it in all sectors that as competition increases and as the production becomes more efficient, then you would expect prices to reduce, to be honest. What we need to do is to look at the value of the client relationship as opposed to the pure compliance. Because more and more firms over the recent years have moved into service-based pricing. So we're looking at a lot more firms on subscription models, looking at a lot more firms who are doing monthly billing. That the concept of just charging a client for a set of accounts is less and less common. And so I think that means that we're actually less price sensitive than we would have been if we hadn't made those sorts of changes. Because the client will now look at the value that they get from their accountant over a year. What we're looking to do here is to build more into that value. And because of the way that we do it, it can be more profitable for both the client and for the accountant themselves. So I don't think it's going to be a case of quite naturally driving down fees, almost the opposite. We've got the opportunity to build fees. But certainly if you compare what a client would pay for a set of accounts now compared to 5 years ago, for instance, you would expect that to become under increasing pressure. And it's one reason why firms need to change how they approach their pricing with their clients.
Yeah. And do you see any differences between the size of firms and how they're affected? So small firms disproportionately affected by this?
Not necessarily. I think it's got a lot more to do with how you run your firm and what sort of firm you want to be. I mean, we are seeing, particularly post-COVID, we're seeing an explosion in small accounting firms. That the technology allows people to set up an accounting firm far easier than ever before. And we're seeing a lot of new players coming to the market who've got some great ideas about how to run accounting firms. The advantage of being a small firm is that you can change tomorrow if you want to. It's one reason why we focus on that marketplace ourselves, because decision by committee is the death of any successful business. And to be able to work with owner, manager, accountants who go, okay, right, we want to try something different tomorrow. I think that's the world we live in today. I think you have to be that flexible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what we see. That kind of small to medium sized firm with quick decision making and an owner who's truly in charge, if you like, of the destiny of the firm, are the ones that move much quicker, as you say. Okay, so what if it's obvious then that this is the direction of travel? What are the things that are holding us back? So, Richard, could you talk us through some of these points?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what you've got at number 4 there, which is confidence and self-confidence. I would imagine that quite a number of people on this webinar today will have tried to deliver, let's call them advisory services in the past. So we'll have looked to deliver something a little bit more strategic for their clients, would have wanted to get more involved in their clients' businesses and maybe hold more regular meetings to take them down a business plan, those sort of things. And maybe not been successful in that, because although you can get some clients engaged fairly early on, the big challenge is then sustaining it. When the accountant is short of time and resources, and when the client is short of time and resources, it's very hard to sustain these programs. And so because of that, because we've tried and in a sense failed, that knocks confidence. But also because clients don't ask for it. And so, something I come across an awful lot is people saying, well, actually, I'm not sure my clients want this sort of service. My question is always the same. You don't have clients who want to improve their business, who want to improve their lives for themselves, for their families, for their colleagues, for their teams, for their customers. We all have those clients. But the problem at the moment is that they don't necessarily understand, A, that there is a fix, and B, that their accountant is the person who can deliver that fix. So all of that raises issues about confidence. Can we do it? Do our clients want it? The answer to both of those is yes. And I think that's where you then flip it to the top and say, okay, if we are going to do this, what services are we going to offer? How are we going to deliver them? and how do we engage our team in that process? Because there'll be this belief that the team don't have the experience or the confidence, the expertise to get involved either. It has to be a whole of firm approach. If it's something that, if you're a sole practitioner and you go, right, I want to do this tomorrow, then you're going to struggle to try and do it on your own because you're already very, very busy, as are your team, as are your clients. So it needs a much more strategic approach to understand what you're looking to deliver, how you're going to deliver it, how you're going to engage and develop the skills of the team to deliver it as well. But this is perfectly feasible within pretty much any accounting firm if it's what you want to do.
That confidence point and your kind of emphasis on that is really interesting to hear, because I think about our own developments as a business, that when we first set up Whisper Claims, we saw it, entirely as a tech business. We were building a tool for people to use to do R&D tax claims quicker and more efficiently. And over time, we realised that actually the take-up of that tool and the deployment of that tool is directly related to the confidence of the user, and that actually as a business we need to focus on how do we give our users that confidence. So it's sort of unlocking that opportunity, and that's true of any advisory service, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's where the tech is very much part of that opportunity today, because what tech can do is provide us with the tools to build the services and to build the conversations with the clients. So we're not starting from scratch. One of the reasons why we set up our own firm in the first place back in 1993 was because we wanted an accounting firm that was about the client relationship, that wasn't just about being an accounts and tax production unit. So with where we were working at that time, it was all about chargeable hours, all about billable hours and timesheets, and getting the work in progress out there. There was very little conversation about the client, and the gap between the accountant and the client was growing. So it was fundamental to us in the first place that we sat in front of clients and we had conversations with those clients. Now, out of that, we developed what would now be called advisory services, but actually it was no more than taking an interest in the client, listening to the client's challenges, the client's problems, and going, okay, well, what can we do to help?
Yeah.
As you build more and more of that sort of work, you need to build the resources and the systems and the process to do it. But back in 1993, what we didn't have to back us up then was tech. Everything was still essentially manual, or certainly slow to produce.
Yeah.
Well, now with such a range of tech available, with just a range of apps available, with the client data available, we can do an awful lot with clients. So that helps in itself. It helps confidence, because that first issue about what services are we going to offer, what is our means of delivery? Well, tech is at the heart of both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's a perfect segue into this slide. So Steve Price is one of our customers. In fact, he's a joint customer of ours, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
With you guys too, from BWP. And the point that Steve's making here is that this isn't about selling. It's about what you just said, actually. It's about having conversations, perhaps deeper conversations with your client than you used to. But it's about that. It's not about going knocking on new doors.
No, I mean, when I first met Steve, he was working out of serviced offices. He'd got one member of staff. He was a very, very relatively new firm. Today, he heads up one of the fastest growing firms in the Northwest, and it's all built essentially on advisory type services, on going to a client and saying, yes, we'll take care of your compliance, but what more can we do for you? And that's with a strong team engaged around it. Now, that hasn't happened through them spending huge amounts of money or by Steve being in any way unique in terms of his skills. It's come from recognizing that the client relationship is what matters most here. And if you build on that relationship, you build the rewards for both the client and the accountant themselves. But if your focus isn't on the relationship, it doesn't happen. You fall back on the lowest common denominator, which is accounts and tax.
Yeah, and I guess it's important to reflect on the fact, given where we started this conversation, that actually the numbers, so those compliance services are the starting point. Without that, there is no relationship, and actually there is no deeper relationship than understanding your client's numbers inside out.
And this is I think this is the point that for us accountants is so important, because we do have the client data. The clients trust us with their data, with their information. So, whilst there are many different sectors who are looking to get into this sort of work with our clients, you've got business coaches, you've got the fintechs, you've got the banks. They all want to get into this sort of work with our clients. But the fact is that our clients have come to us in the first place because they want someone to help them with their data. That's fundamentally what this is about. Mm-hmm. We prove that we're the people to do that. So we earn their trust. Once you've got someone's trust, that's the starting point for then building these added value relationships, these advisory relationships, whatever you want to call them. This is saying, okay, well, we've now sorted out your compliance is fine. You haven't got to worry about that. We've taken care of that. Your data's nice and clean. We've got all this useful information on your business. We're seeing lots of things out of that. So let's now start to have the conversations about what that means and where it goes. It doesn't have to be solely around data and financial information. There's lots of conversations about understanding what it is that the client is really trying to achieve. And I think that's where you can definitely make a flip once you get the client talking to you about what really matters to them and what the reasons why they do what they do, and their core values and their dreams, their visions. Once you take them down that route, then the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do. But the starting point, we have the same starting point with every client, which is we have data on your business that we'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah. And sort of just tying that back into what we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, there ought to be the sort of ultimate confidence that comes from that, knowing that your client trusts you with that level of information. The starting point is so strong that there's no reason to not go into this with confidence.
No, there isn't. I mean, I think as accountants, we were there once. I think if you look at the accountant of the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, then they were genuinely the trusted advisor, that the client turned to them for everything. Whether it was conversations about the business or the family or the community, whatever it was, the accountant was somebody in the community and they were trusted by everybody. I think we lost that during the 80s, 90s, 2000s. We lost that in this drive to be more corporate, more commercial. We productized our services, and I think we moved away from the relationship. And I think we're now realizing, particularly post-COVID, that actually the relationship is what it's all about. And we've now got the time and the tools to actually do something significant with it.
Yeah, agreed. So, we talked about trust here. What about new clients? And I guess the point here is you need to build on that relationship and trusted partner status with existing clients before you can make that step to kind of reach out to the outside world.
Yeah, very much so. I think that everything starts with your existing clients. A, because they're the ones where you have that existing trust. B, because they're the ones where you've got existing information. So, when you're looking to build advisory services, then it all starts with your existing clients, and all firms leave a huge amount of money on the table when it comes to their existing clients. It's very easy to say, again, my clients won't pay for this. They will if they see the value. Certainly the vast majority of them will if they see the value. So your first step is to focus on those existing clients, changing their perception, if you like, of your role as an accountant. Once you've done that, you're in a far stronger position to then go into the external marketplace, the outside marketplace, because you've got the case studies, you've got the testimonials, you've got the existing happy clients that bring that social trust to any new person looking at your firm accountant.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed there's a report published a few days ago by Practice Web. I've made a note of what it's called. A Digital Accountant Is Your Firm Behind the Curve? There's a couple of, and I think Susan's got a link to it. If you could post that up, Susan, in the chat. There's a couple of interesting points in it, one of which was 40% of the people who'd responded to it, this is a firms responding to it, said that online competition was a challenging issue, and you can't deliver many of these services we're referring to here necessarily online. I think that's the point, is they're kind of fearful of that price pressure coming from the core compliance services and kind of seeing this, this desperate need, if you like, to shift into a value-added service arena. And it's interesting that there's reports out there and data now pointing at exactly that.
Yeah, we know that clients want this sort of service if they know it's out there. We're all the same. When we run our own accounting firms, it can feel very lonely at times, and we face challenges and problems that we don't. Either we think we're the only people with that problem, or we actually don't realise that there's a solution. You just have to live with it. This is how it is, and it's one reason. It's the main reason why we do what we do, to go into firms of accountants and say, look, it doesn't have to be like this. And it's the same with the SME clients of the accountants. When you're running a business, you don't necessarily get the opportunity to see what good is and see what other people do. And so you assume that the stresses and the pressures that you face, that's just what it is when you're running a business. If somebody unlocks that and goes, actually, there is a solution to this, and it's not necessarily as hard as you think, and your accountant is the person who could do it. And bear in mind, with a lot of this, it's not just about the accountant delivering answers. Much of this is around the accountant simply having conversations with the client and listening to what the client's saying, because we all will have experienced it. You talk through your problems with somebody and you realize that actually you've got the solution yourself. It's just that you've had this opportunity to talk it through with someone. And that's the case with so much of this. As accountants, we are as much a catalyst for change and a facilitator with our clients, as we are the person who comes in with all the answers. This goes back to that confidence thing. One of the reasons we don't like to think, how can I do advisory work with my clients? Because what happens if they ask me a question I don't know? Yeah. Well, the reality is they will ask you questions that you don't know, because none of us know everything. But that doesn't mean to say that you working with your client can't come to the solutions that you need. And if you don't, there will be plenty of people in your network who do, because that's what accountants do.
Yeah, I made a note of, again, from that same report from PracticeWeb, there was a slide in there with a graph of the top, essentially, drivers for change. It's essentially saying that SMEs are looking for the three top things were experience, customer service, and additional services, were the top three things that SMEs are looking for in order to overcome their business challenges from their accountant. And all three of those things kind of tie into what we're talking about. Clearly, new services do, but that experience and customer service come into what you were talking about there in terms of the relationship and the dialogue with the client.
Everything comes back to customer service. We can have conversations about pricing, we can have conversations about services. We talk about how you retain clients, how you can recruit new clients, but fundamentally, absolutely everything comes back to the customer service and the way that the accountant actively manages those client relationships. So this is where, if you take the software that Whisper Claims have on offer, for instance, we talk about advisory keys, which are things that can unlock a different sort of conversation with a client. So if you can imagine, for a lot of your clients, they will have just been used to coming into their accountant and talking about their accounts, talking about their attacks, because that's what's always happened. And so it can be quite a challenge for both the accountant and the client to suddenly shift that and go, let's have a conversation about business planning or strategic advice or wealth management, whatever it may be. It's a bit alien territory for both. If you can have something that unlocks that, but in a much easier way, it's far easier for the accountant to put it in front of the client, and it's far easier for the client to digest. So with what Whisper Claims offer, where you make it so easy for the accountant to analyse the R&D potential for a client, and then to sit down with the client and say, look, this is what it looks like. It presents that opportunity to say to a client, look, you're in next week. Do you mind if we have 15 minutes at the back of the meeting? Because there's something I want to show you. And you've got something tangible which the client can then immediately buy into and start to see the benefits from. So it's a good example of how it all comes down to the accountant in the end. The accountant has got to prompt these conversations. But these advisory keys, these bits of tech like Whisper Claims, make it far easier for the accountant to sit down and put something tangible in front of the client and say, look, you're going to find this interesting.
Yeah.
But you can't get away from the fact that the accountant has got to do that in the first place. They've got to prompt those conversations.
Yeah. But that's set against, I would say both, and that's set against this kind of backdrop. I mentioned the LinkedIn poll that I ran a few months ago earlier. this was asking a question of, do you see your accountant as a trusted business advisor, and is it somebody you would go to for Sage Business Advice? And you can see from those figures that 88% of respondents to that said either yes or actually I wish my accountant was in that category. So the door's open essentially is the message there that SMEs want to talk to their accountant about these issues.
Yeah, and that the phrase you use, the door is open, is quite right, because it is. I mean, it's not that often. I know we get bad press, and maybe a lot of the bad press we sort of create ourselves within the profession by being a bit negative about ourselves, but it's not that often, in all honesty, that I come across people who say my accountant is rubbish. Because if their accountant is rubbish, they move. It's quite simple. Lots of people say, I wish I could get more from my accountant, but they don't necessarily know what it is they want. And of course, they're scared of fees because they don't know what they're buying. But this is why the more the accountant can present something tangible that the client can recognize and see what it means to them and see what it means to their business, to their family, then they're going to go, yes, that's what I'm talking about. So I can think of certainly one firm that I'm seeing again tomorrow. They've increased their fees up to 600% since COVID. So at a time when the cost of living is hitting hard, when a lot of businesses are under pressure, by stepping their game up and delivering more to their clients and getting clients to see what they're delivering and to see the value of clients will pay for this stuff. Yeah. They will pay for good value that has clear benefit to them. In the past, our challenge as accountants has been that's a cumbersome process. Now it isn't, because now by using the right tech, you can sit down and say to a client, let me show you something that will make a difference.
That's interesting. We've seen a couple of our customers really shift into delivering R&D tax services because of COVID. So actually the underlying driver was seeing clients who were desperate for cash, which is then exposing the need to look for solutions to that problem, and R&D was one of those solutions, and we've seen that often through lockdown, and I guess that's true of other services, as you say.
And I think everybody has changed. Everybody has been impacted by the last 2 years, and so I think we've all changed our outlook. We've changed our thinking. We've changed our priorities. Your client bases will have done exactly the same. And so to sit down and have those conversations, as much as anything else, just to understand how their priorities have changed. Because what we delivered for them back in 2018, 2019, which seems an awful long time ago now, isn't necessarily what they want today. And now we can deliver what they want today, but they won't know that unless we have those conversations with them. They won't know that their accountant, the accountant who they're used to doing accounts and tax in 18 and 19, is the person who can work with them on more value-added approaches now, and who can help with them with their wider issues. So, I know I keep coming back to the same point, but all of this starts with client conversations and getting a better understanding between the client and the accountant of each other. Yeah. And anything that you can put on the table that helps, that prompts that conversation, it has to be worthwhile.
Yeah, and I mean, taking that further, then, what are the steps to get towards building a solution here?
Well, my advice is always to go in from the shallow end, both in terms of services and pricing. So, start with what you know. This isn't a matter of all of a sudden we all become coaches or strategists or futurists or whatever we want to call ourselves. What we know we're good at as accountants is financial management. That is what we're trained to do. It's what we're very experienced at. It's what we're very good at. So I would always start with things based around data, whether you're looking at forecasting, budgeting, business plans, helping clients with pricing, helping clients with cost controls, something around the numbers, looking at tax planning, looking at more efficient ways for the client to manage their data, for instance. This is all core to it anyway. And also from a price point of view, I would start with that relatively easy. So this idea of just having a 15 minutes tagged onto the back of an existing conversation, an existing meeting, not charging for it, but just moving it through. Once clients start to see the rewards of the action that you're taking, then they will start to spend more money with you. But until then, it's a shot in the dark. And particularly now with all the financial pressures, people don't want that risk. So to have a conversation with a client, many clients will be struggling for cash at the moment. So to have a conversation with them about their credit control, about their pricing, about their invoicing, about how they can get their invoices out quicker, their money in quicker. To say to them, look, why not just go away, try this for a couple of months, come back and see me on this date, and let's see how you've done. Here's a client who comes back and all of a sudden they've got £30,000 more in their bank account than they had. Right, well, there's a client who's now going to be listening. So start very relatively informal. This is not a big sell to clients. This is us talking about what we know about and what we know that client will benefit for. If we know that client's bookkeeping is poor, let's start there. If we know their credit control is poor, let's start there. If we know that they're struggling for profit, let's start there. The things that as accountants we've always done.
Yeah.
And then as an accountant, you look at what tech you have available to you and go, right, how can we make that process easier? So what do we have in terms of tax planning software? What do we have in terms of forecasting models? Do we have the tools to enable us to sit down and have these conversations efficiently with our clients? Out of that, this is where you start to engage the team, because this is about team training, making sure they can use the software, starting to introduce the team into client meetings, look how you conduct client meetings. It's a gradual process. It's not a matter of let's design our advisory service and let's stick it on the website and let's promote it to clients. That doesn't work. This is about, we know our clients, we know what clients need help, we know the areas that we can help them in. How are we going to monetize and develop those services in those areas?
Yeah. And Rob here from CCM over in Rochdale, great customer of ours, he's making the point here that ties in perfectly with what you just said. That they've been giving this added value away for free for years. They've been having these conversations, but not monetizing them.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, many accountants came into the profession, certainly set up their own firms because they want to make a difference. They want to help their clients. And we've fallen into this trap over the years because we know the challenges our clients face better than anyone. We know the challenges our clients face. And so constantly, we've got into this thing of just giving stuff away for free. And we've ended up, for the right reasons, I wanted to help our clients, we've ended up with an imbalance in the relationship because essentially the people who then pay for those services are ourselves and our families and not the clients. And so all we're talking about here is presenting things in a clearer way, which tech enables us to do, therefore that the client can see the benefit and therefore the client will pay for, and we have a more balanced relationship. I'm not saying you should never give stuff away for free, as in that example I talked about earlier. If you're doing it as a strategic thing to then build fees down the line, that's absolutely fine. That's just marketing strategy. That's not a problem at all. But let's stop giving away our valuable expertise and our valuable advice and our valuable time. That doesn't work for us as a business model. And we suffer, and our families suffer. If we want to improve lives for our clients and for our families, we should equally want to improve our own lives and the lives for our families as well. And the right client will understand that. That sort of honesty, say, look, this will work for you and it'll work for us. Are we both okay with that? Yeah. And equally to say, look, I can't keep giving you this stuff for free because it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
It costs me and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the right client wouldn't want that. They want their accountant to be successful in the same way that they want their accountant to help them to be successful.
Yeah. And thinking about that success and what you said about the leveraging technology to deliver service, we've got 3 examples here of these are all Whisper Claims users, but there's this broader point about leveraging technology here. So Phil over on the left there, many people on the call may know of Phil. He won the Digital Accountants of the Year award last year. So as Phil's saying there, Whisper Claims was the trigger to spend more time with our clients. So irrespective of whether he generated an R&D claim out of using our tool, it enabled him to spend more time having deeper conversations with some critically important clients. And of course, that's led to the opportunities to deliver yet more value and deliver more services to those clients. As I say, irrespective of whether he's done an R&D claim, and he's done many R&D claims now with us. Rob there, we just saw on the last slide as well, he's talking about the fact that the tech is giving him this structured, process-driven approach. So he may have been delivering, well, he was delivering R&D tax services before, but now he's got this standardized, repeatable process. It's enabling him to do it quickly, it's enabling him to do it more thoroughly, and to do it in that kind of repeatable fashion. And of course, that's easier to teach the rest of the team, so he's able to spread the load across the team too. And then Thomas over on the right there, Fraser and Dieter, for those who haven't heard of them, they're quite a big US company, recently entered the UK market. And Thomas is kind of reflecting there on the amount of time saved in using technology. So yes, it's R&D claims is something they were doing before, but now he's taking 7-8 hours worth of time out of each individual claim. So that kind of knock-on effect on productivity across his firm is huge. So there's all of these are kind of reflecting the different benefits of leveraging tech.
Yeah, and I think there are three great examples that perfectly demonstrate what we're talking about here, Mike, which is that if for those of you listening to the webinar, if you're thinking I need to do advisory because I've been told I need to, and because compliance is exposed, then that you're going to struggle. That's the wrong way around. We have three firms of accountants here, all of whom, first and foremost, are very clear on what they want to be, what sort of firms they want to be, what sort of services they want to offer, what sort of client relationships they want. That has to be the starting point. Once you're clear on that, then you look at the tech and you go, okay, right, how do we use tech to systemize that and make it deliverable and enable us to train the team in the process as well? But the starting point isn't to sell advisory services to clients. The starting point is to be quite clear what sort of firm you want to be. What sort of accountant are you? What sort of firm do you want to be? Then you look at the services that you're delivering and go, right, how do we make this fit? How can we utilize tech? How can we develop our team to help us become that sort of firm? You may decide that you want to be a 100% compliance-based firm, and that's absolutely fine. Be efficient at it, be effective at it, use the tech to deliver it really, really well. You don't want to be selling advisory to your clients because that doesn't fit your model. Equally, you might say, okay, we want to be entirely advisory, boutique based. We don't want to do any compliance. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it because I think compliance fits the model. It builds trust. But if that's what you want, great. You've got to be clear on who and what you are, first of all, and build a firm that reflects your model, your beliefs, your values, the sort of accountant that you want to be and the sort of clients that you want. And then you look at the tech and go, right, what helps me do that? That I think is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot there. We mentioned earlier on an ebook that we put together jointly a few months ago. Suze, do you want to just walk us through that?
Yeah, so this, as I mentioned at the top of the event, this is co-authored by Mike and Richard here. It's available to download for free on our website. I've just popped a link in the chat box there, which is a link directly to the asset. If anybody's going to the website directly, there is a form that you need to fill out. So this will take you directly to the PDF. So please do feel free and go and download that. It covers all of the content really that's been reflected in the session today.
And I think we're going to add that to the follow-up email after the session as well. So everyone will get it anyway, which is great. Yeah. And then we've got another session coming up shortly as well.
Yeah, we do. So just as a bit of a follow-on from this one, again, I'm just popping a link in the chat box too. Mike and I will be, anybody who's interested in seeing hearing a bit more about Whisper Claims, the background, where we're at just now, the influence that we've had in the R&D space to date, and also a demo of the system, a slightly condensed demo. Please do feel free to join us on Friday the 22nd of July. I think there'll be a link to that in the follow-up email too, but if anybody wants to book in quickly, there's a URL for you to jump onto.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thanks, Suze. And then we've got contact details for both myself and Richard there. So if anyone wants to kind of follow up on this conversation with direct emails, feel free. That's us. And then I think, have we had some questions coming in, Suze, while we've been chatting through there?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So please do feel free, anybody who's got any more, do start filling in the Q&A box because we've got some time to spare. So it'd be lovely if we can answer any questions just now. Are you all right for me to go ahead, Mike?
Yeah,
Jump
in.
So first one from Malcolm. Thanks, Malcolm. Are there any risk transfer issues for accountants when using third-party services?
Short answer is yes, there can be. Obviously, if you're recommending any third-party service, or if you're using software, then first of all you need to make sure that you've done your own due diligence, that you're happy that it fits in with what you're looking to achieve in your model, etc., and the quality. If you're using something that is going to be a significant part of what you're doing, my advice is that I would normally recommend that you let your insurers know. In most cases, it's just a note for the file, but they've been told and therefore it's pulled in within your cover. I think it's highly unlikely that you're going to be getting into areas where there is a higher level of risk than normal, but I think it's just good housekeeping to keep that communication going with your insurers. So if for instance, let's just say you choose, we're going to make a big thing of whisper claims. We're going to use whisper claims at the core of what we're going to do. We're going to do a lot more R&D services. I would just let them know. And let them know what due diligence have done, and let them know how the process is going to work, because that way then they've been told. It stops any issues down the line.
Mm-hmm. Slightly different point, just building on that, Richard, is and being specific here about R&D. So because a lot of firms choose, or have traditionally chosen, to outsource R&D work to specialist advisors usually. And I suppose the elephant in the room around R&D is that it's a market that has a lot of reputational issues. So there's a lot of consultants out there that carry a poor reputation, and all of us will have examples of poorly put together R&D claims that cross boundaries. And HMRC have gone through several consultations recently around how to improve behaviour in R&D tax. So one of the issues around risk for accountants operating in the space is actually, if you've chosen to outsource, who have you outsourced to, and what kind of risk does that expose you to? So not necessarily in terms of PI and insurance cover, but actually in terms of reputational risk. And we find a lot of people coming to us where we're providing them with the tech that enables them to deliver the service themselves. Why do they want to do that? It's actually because of these reputational issues. It's better to be in control of their own destiny than having a third party breaking the rules, essentially, with their clients. We see that a lot. And actually increasingly at the minute, this kind of reputational thing is becoming a big deal.
Yeah, I would endorse that. It's a very good point. We will all have come across horror stories in the R&D world. Some of the things that go on now I find astonishing, to be honest. There's certainly not sort of things that you'd expect a professional accountant firm to do. And as Mike says, if you're in control of the software and you're working with them as a supplier as opposed to essentially a third party referrer, then you're in a stronger position to control the quality of that, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Suze, any more?
Yeah, one more. Anybody else, please do feel free to fire in. So this is a great question from somebody. So do most of us accountants struggle with agreeing the fee for that additional work, and when to bring that up rather than being able to do the advisory work?
Yes, is the answer. It is. I mean, pricing is the number one conversation with accountants. There are lots of tools out there that can help when it comes to your sorting out your budget and your proposals and all the rest of it. But ultimately, you're going to have to sit down with the client and say, this is what it's going to cost. People tell me that it's okay for you to do that, Richard, because you've done that for years. But my starting point was no different to anybody else on this call. It's something you've got to break through. The key is in the preparation. I think to sit down and to be quite clear what service you're offering, what the benefits are to the client, and then in terms of price, are you happy with the price that you're going to quote? We can never determine whether the client's going to be happy or not. It's up to the client whether they're happy or not. The key thing is, am I going to quote you a figure which, if you question, I'm confident saying this is why I've charged, this is why I'm proposing to charge that much. I think too often we all do it, don't we? We have these 3 o'clock in the morning conversations with clients in our head where we start off on a figure, and before we've even got into the office, we've talked ourselves down 50% because we don't think the client will like it. Well, give the client the conversation, give them, in a sense, respect the client. if we're open and honest with the client on what we want to charge and why we believe it's the right the price, the client can agree with that or not agree with that, but that's their call. We can then either negotiate or go, okay, well, we can't do it then. But I think we have to be a little bit more open in our conversations with clients. There is no magic figure. The only right price is the one that the accountant and the client are happy to shake hands on.
Yeah. And if I again pick on R&D specifically, again, people in the room here will know that the R&D market has traditionally been priced on a contingent fee basis. And up until not many years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you're still seeing contingent fees of around 30% of the tax benefit. There's been lots of price pressure on that in general. It's probably more like 20%, 15 to 20% these days on average. But what we see as people are deploying tech to deliver the service is a shift towards fixed fees, which actually are highly competitive against those sort of traditional operators out there. But B, that's possible because the tech is giving you a kind of known process. You know how much time it's going to take, you know what value you're going to add, and you can price on a much more confident basis. So there's no need to go with contingent fees necessarily. So we see a mixture of our users either going with very competitive contingent fees if they think that contingent's appropriate, or just shifting, as I say, straight to a fixed fee model. And we sort of love to see that disruption going on out there, and accountants, as I say, kind of taking control of that relationship and the service delivery.
Great. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, Suze.
Got another one. So do you find accountants will have the R&D experience to be able to use your platform?
Okay, I'll jump into that. 2 things to talk about. One is that the software itself is designed to be really easy to use. It's a very structured process that you work through with your client. Structured and thorough is the way to describe it, so that the output from it is an HMRC compliant report and set of figures ready for the CT600. But as I mentioned earlier on in the session, one of the things we learned earlier on was it's not just about the tech, and it's about giving our customers confidence as well. So a lot of our customers came to us in the first instance having not put R&D claims together. They know what it is, they know what the process is in outline terms, but not necessarily done it before. So in terms of experience, they don't necessarily have very much. So we've created a service wrap around the platform to overcome that, which is based on a series of regular webinars. We've got a training course that's all about the fundamentals of the R&D tax scheme to bring people up to a level. And then really importantly, within the app itself, we have direct links out through live chat to our team of advisors. So if you are sat with a client and you're faced with a particularly challenging a question from the client or a challenging situation around eligibility, our guys are there to help you. So our whole support wrap has been designed around giving you the confidence and giving you the ability to produce a quality output. So as I say, not just about the tech, it's about the people and the services we've wrapped around the tech as well to give you that confidence to do a good job.
And I think again, this is a good example of doing your due diligence and buying the right software for your firm, working with the right suppliers for your firm as well. If we're going to grow our firms, then we have to offer new services and we have to expand existing services. That's the reality of it. And for most firms, they do very, very few R&D claims, but R&D is a great service to offer clients. And so therefore, it's back to, yes, we should offer R&D. How are we going to do it? And Whisper Claims offer, a very clear solution for that, because it's not just about the software, but it's about the support and the education that you get along it. And that's, we've touched a number of times in this call about engaging the team and getting the team more involved. Well, that's how you can do it, by having, by building up those sort of education programs on a wider scale as well. If you're going to offer a service, then you want to be able to understand that service. But the fact that you don't have the skills now isn't a reason not to offer it, because
well, you'd never offer anything new if that was the case.
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. How are we doing on questions, Sue?
I think that's it for now. I've just popped your contact details in the chat box for both of you, just in case anybody wants to reach out. I think that's all of them done for today.
Brilliant.
Want to bring Steph back in, or whether we close down the Hi, Steph.
Yeah, if that's all the questions that you've got, then we can leave it there. Suze has put email addresses there, so if you have any follow-up questions, then please do reach out to these guys. We will be sending out a follow-up with all the links to the recording and all the white paper, and then also the link to the webinar that's happening next Friday. So thanks very much for joining us.